Welcome to another episode of The Horrific Podcast. We're two musicians who used to play in a band together and share a passion for scary movies. Each week we pick a different horror movie and dissect it to figure out what it was trying to accomplish, how well it did, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. If you haven't seen the movie we're talking about, then don't worry. The first half of the episode will be pretty high level and spoiler free, and then we'll play a warning before we start talking about any major plot twists in the ending. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the episode. So I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to talk about Stan Winston in your fun facts?
No.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to for just a second, because I feel like a lot of what I'm going to talk about later kind of depends on him.
Oh, okay.
And when I was watching the opening credits for this movie, which lasted for approximately 20 minutes of the hour and 20-minute runtime, I saw Stan Winston's name like a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew it was familiar, but I couldn't place it, so I looked him up, and I had plenty of time to do so because the credits went on forever. But I immediately saw why I knew the name, and that was because he was actually a really famous makeup artist in the 80s and 90s, and he did all the special effects, or a lot of the special effects for like Terminator, the Alien series, Jurassic Park, and Predator.
Yeah.
But this movie was his directorial debut. So that's a name that you wouldn't necessarily associate with horror, just kind of with like bigger movies. But this was the first movie he directed, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that. He was a makeup artist. I didn't do any research into him.
Yeah, and most of that I think I just recognized it because I've seen the Jurassic Park movies so many times, and we just recently watched Aliens. But yeah, so there you go.
Pretty sweet. That's a good fun fact.
Yeah. Had you seen this movie before?
Nope.
I hadn't either.
First time I ever seen it.
Cool. Well, I'll introduce it, and then you can do your facts, and then we'll get into it.
Okay.
In 1988, United Artists released Pumpkinhead, which was the directorial debut of Stan Winston, a beloved Hollywood makeup artist. When 6 young adult city slickers go to a cabin in a remote area, their carelessness triggers a series of events that result in a monster being summoned to hunt them down to exact revenge on them for their actions. This movie was made on a budget of about $3.5 million and made just over $4 million at the box office. It has, however, maintained a cult following over the years and has been released multiple times each on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. It has also spawned several sequels. Pumpkinhead can currently be rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video.
I looked that up this time, for the record.
So you actually got to rent it instead of buy it?
Yeah. Well, it was also on iTunes. But you know what I noticed because I went to rent it on Amazon, and I was like, I don't want to have to deal with like trying to get it up on my app on Apple TV.
Yeah.
So I immediately declined or like canceled the transaction, and you get charged more. Like I was charged tax for renting that, so it was going to be like $4 something. Opposed to Apple TV, it was $3.99.
Well, yeah, Amazon and tax has gotten, I don't know. It probably
like they don't have to pay it; they just make us pay it.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But it probably also means that the man can't pick you up for tax evasion like he did Al Capone.
That's true. Anyway, yeah. I am, and I hope our listeners are wise to that too, where if you can't find anywhere else, at least look on Amazon.
Yeah.
Cool. So I have a couple facts about this. One, I would just like, I'm just gonna get this out there. So Pumpkinhead is a demon who's named Pumpkinhead because he's buried in a pumpkin patch.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's not a guy with a pumpkin head like some of us thought. Me. I was really hoping that was the case.
Yeah.
That's not the case. So this film was inspired by a poem written by a man named Ed Justin. It was about a demonic creature who's hell-bent on vengeance. There was actually a few lines used in this. Sorry, there's a few lines from the poem that were later used in a Misfits song called Pumpkinhead, which essentially relayed the entire plot of this movie.
Which came first, the movie or the song?
This movie.
Nice.
That's a strict guess. Okay, so Ed Harley, who's the main character, they have a dog, and the dog is played. The dog's name is Mushroom. It's portrayed. It has also portrayed Billy's dog, Barney, a few years prior in the movie Gremlins.
Oh, that's why it looks familiar.
Yeah, so this dog has some pretty heavy horror credits to its name. He goes on to talk about how it's a good dog, but all dogs are, so what can you do? Also, last fact I have, the cabin, the teenagers who are in this movie, sorry, let me fix that because it was gonna give away a plot.
We'll say teenagers with air quotes.
What's that? Yeah, the quote unquote teenagers, the city slickers.
Yes.
They end up going to a cabin, which is the exact same cabin that the Jarvis family home, which was used 4 years prior in Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Oh.
The captain stands in Topanga Hills, California, and has been seen in various movies and TV shows. Let's see, it can also be rented out for weddings, special events, and you can learn more about it at this website. I'm not telling you what it is.
I had so much anticipation.
We're not getting paid for it.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. This episode is not sponsored by this website we're not going to tell you about.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
So, anyway, those were some of the fun facts I had about it.
Interesting. Well, we talk a lot about how horror movies draw from and reference other horror movies a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of next level as far as using that location and using the same dog. So, kind of cool.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, so after the fun facts, we normally talk about what the people who made the movie were trying to do and how well they did it. And I think that knowing this was the first project of a career special effects guy makes it make a lot more sense.
It does, absolutely.
And I think that the main focus of the movie was definitely the visuals and not the sound or the acting or the dialogue or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It was actually a little confusing because of how long I felt it took to get to the action. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that.
Because for this one, I felt like the camera work and filming were surprisingly high quality for an 80s horror movie. Yeah. The picture was just so clear. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot less, kind of grainy and out of focus than what I'm used to from 80s slasher movies and stuff. Mm-hmm. And even in the scenes where it was more grainy, I felt like that was almost on purpose to capture the feel of the scene better. Yeah. All of the camera work and the filming seemed very deliberate. Mm-hmm. The way they set up some of the shots, and even the way that they used light, I thought was really good. The way that you would see it coming in through the window dramatically, those bright beams of light, or with the creature where it's kind of flashing and you've got smoke and stuff. So I feel like the director knew that was his strength, and he played it up a lot through the movie.
Yeah, there were a couple parts too where it was there was almost a film or a coating over the lenses or something that made it look more dusty or yellowish or something like that, which I assume was by default. But I think looking back on it and thinking okay, well, for a movie that was made for only $3 million, it actually turned out pretty good considering.
Just from a movie making perspective.
Yeah. I think the thing that helped it was the director, doing all the special effects, I assume. Yeah. But it's actually that turned out pretty well. Maybe if there were a couple better things that come along, which we'll get into later.
Acting.
Yeah, that was super rough, and not even like Ed Harley. It was like the teenage, quote unquote, teenagers.
Oh, they were terrible. Yeah,
that was rough. But anyway, it was like there was this coating on it, and it almost made it look like, because it said like it does a scene at the beginning, and then it cuts to present day. But even then, it almost looked like it was old Western film.
Well,
because of the coating and stuff. I was like, well, that doesn't seem like it's in the 80s.
Yeah, and one of the things I had in my notes was that it almost felt like Old Yeller at times because of that filming and the coloring, but also the music that was used. They had like that very kind of twangy folk music, which is not something I'm used to at all in a horror movie.
Right.
And the way that they sort of blended that with the more traditional sort of horror ambient, scary music, I thought was unique. It's not something that I think I've ever seen in a movie before.
Yeah, it was almost like a 90s sitcom in some ways, where like the music that was playing behind sounded like they were just, I don't know how to explain it. Like it was
almost like a stereotype of the scene.
Yeah, like when he's like, when they're having a good time driving down the car, it's playing like this specific type that's just like upbeat, but I don't know. It just definitely wasn't what I was expecting, for sure. Was it not?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess kind of continuing on talking about how it was visually, I thought the makeup and practical effects were pretty good. Like that old witch lady looked just terrifying. Yeah. And then the monster, I guess this is one of the few movies that showed the monster a lot, and I didn't feel like that was a liability.
No.
It reminded me a lot of Alien in that way.
Yeah. I actually read where Haggis's makeup weighed around like 10 pounds, I think, or 11 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Like her costume, I guess, or something like that. So I don't know how that's the situation, but that's what they said.
Yeah. That's dedication, carrying that around.
Yep.
But yeah,
I think with the makeup, with like the special effects too, like there were a couple scenes like where Pumpkinhead's like drawing a line on a body, and it looks like that's actually happening at that time. Like it was just like, man, like, yeah, that's. I'm not saying that this guy is like the best special effects person ever, but just like considering, if some random person did this movie, without him as a special effects, I think it would have gone in a different direction.
Yeah, the visuals were definitely the strength. The weakness, on the other hand, was the sound and the acting. I really feel like they struggled recording the sound. Like a lot of times the dialogue was just so quiet you couldn't even make it out, and the audio just felt really unbalanced through the whole thing. And then there were several places where it looked like, and again, I never know how much of this is because I'm streaming it and it's possible that the audio and video have gotten out of sync or something, but I actually stopped and exited out and reloaded a couple of times because it looked like the audio track was so far off from the video, but then it would come back together. Yeah. So I don't know how much of that was something happening on my computer versus it was just poorly edited, but it was kind of distracting in some of the scenes, especially towards the beginning.
Yeah, I gotta correct myself. It's actually 65 pounds.
Oh wow, that's even worse. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I didn't notice like any sound off or anything. It just seemed like it was it almost seemed like it was dubbed in a way. Like, like where it just didn't match up nearly as well. But I think it was definitely, that was really rough. And I think one of the reasons why it was rough for me was because it took them a long time to get to the actions, or in my opinion it took quite a while to get to the action. So because of that, like, you're relying on the acting of, and really I'm kind of pointing out like the teenagers acting, because there's not too many different, there wasn't too many actors in this movie, but like I didn't think the dad and the kid was I didn't think that was too bad at first, but just once they show up, it's just like, Jesus, okay. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like occasionally you hear about an actor that elevates the actors around them because they're so good. And it's like, oh, well, this person's performance is so inspiring that everyone else is like better because of it. This one I felt almost was like the other direction. Like all of the fake teenagers were so bad that it just made everyone else bad too around them. You know, like the chemistry was just off, and a lot of the interactions between them was kind of painful to watch. But I've got lots more examples of specific scenes, but we'll get into that after the spoiler.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and to be honest, though, I kind of felt the other direction. Like you're talking about how you felt like it dragged until the main part of the action started. I actually thought it was really well paced for like the first 2/3 of the movie. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, because to me it was like unveiling more of the story, and I really didn't know what to expect, and kind of giving a little bit more of the background and building out the scene and the setting and who everyone was, and there were some things that didn't happen the way that I expected them to. And so I thought that it kept my interest until closer towards the end, when it felt to me like it was just kind of on repeat. Part of that too was I got a work Slack message that I had to do something about, and then I was stressed about that. So sometimes that impacts the way that you're thinking about the movie.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. To me, it dragged a bit towards the end. And then I did like the ending, but we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like I understood that they had to show that connection between father and son and all that, but it was just like, I don't know, like for me about, like a quarter of the way through or a third of the way through, it was just like I kind of almost forgot that it was supposed to be a horror movie.
Yeah,
because
fair.
of what was going on. And I guess, we'll get into it, but it definitely, like, after I watched it, and I was kind of initially kind of frustrated. It's just like, why did it have, like, you could have got this done in 45 minutes. But then I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what we mean when they're talking about developing, developing the backstory a little bit. So it's like, okay, I can understand that. So
trying to make you care about the characters so that the emotional moments hit more and stuff. So but so all that said, who do you think would like this movie, or who would you recommend it to?
So I mean, yet again, it's in the same category as I would put it in the 80s classic horrors, as in, not saying that all horrors that came out in the 80s are classic. It's just, if you like the Friday the 13th and those, this is just, I mean, it's just right up your alley.
Yeah.
Same as, this isn't like a comedy horror like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but I think I can definitely understand why this is a cult classic. Now, am I gonna recommend this over like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or anything? I don't think so, but I just think if you like those movies, then you should absolutely watch this one.
Yeah, to me it was kind of like Creature meets Slasher, so it reminded me of like if Alien was set in a small town, that style of movie. And I think that a lot of the things from Alien were sort of recycled for this, as far as sort of how the creature interacted with people and stuff. But if you are into sort of the more creature horror, then this would probably be something you would enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's play the spoiler warning and get into it.
Warning, warning, warning. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. This is your warning. Warning, warning, warning. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. This is your warning. If it's not obvious enough, warning, spoilers.
Alright, now that we are safely on the other side.
Yep.
What did you love or hate about this movie?
So, for me, I didn't necessarily like how long it kind of took. Is this the thing that we're keeping it down to one thing each?
Yeah. So how about you do a hate, and then I'll do a hate, and then you do a love, and I'll do a love.
Hey, that's good format.
All right.
So you did something right for once in your miserable life.
One and done. I'm out. Nothing but screw ups from here on.
I like to do things where I compliment, but then I bring you right back down.
Yeah, it's like the compliment sandwich without the bottom bun.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, okay, if I have to do one thing, I think it would be the quote unquote teenagers acting. Okay, I'm gonna say they're acting, but also the the poor kids, I'm gonna call them poor kids, that showed up at the, like, that was kind of included with it, but that was like when it was really sparking, like that was when like it was coming together, like, oh shoot, this is not good acting, like this is pretty rough,
and it's like, well, it's already bad, let's put more bad actors in the scene,
right? Yeah. So it was just like, I think that would be the one thing that kind of turned me off about it, and it just continued throughout the movie, and now, you know, I understand with, you know, a smaller budget that you're not gonna get huge actors, but I kind of just like, you just want to like grab the directors and be like, can you get them to not act as cheesy as they are? Like the main bad guy who was drinking beer driving down the road was just like really putting it on that he's like the bad boy.
Yes.
You know, and it's just like okay, man, like we get it.
Yeah.
We get it, dude. Like, you're tough. Like, okay, like, you're gonna obviously be the reason why all this goes off, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, that's what I think what annoyed me the most.
So my hate is also performance related, but mine was actually for Lance Henriksen, who played Ed Harley.
Oh, really?
I think that his acting ruined what was supposed to be the most emotional scene in the movie.
When his son died?
Yeah. Because the way that I don't know if he was going for like the stoic, I'm just like in shock look or what, but based on his reaction, I had no idea if the kid was actually dead or just injured.
Right.
There was like no sense of urgency to his movement. There was no emotional reaction or anything. It was just like he picks him up and carries him back to the house. So I didn't realize he was like even in danger of dying until it already happened. And then I was like, oh crap. You know, like, I feel like he could have played that up so much more and added so much more like suspense and stuff to that scene, and it just didn't happen. And the music, the score didn't help during that time either, but it just, there was like no emotional response. And then it was just like there was no emotional journey or like development of anything. So I think in his character's mind, the line of thinking was son dead, summon revenge monster. I have to think that like summoning the revenge monster would have been like at least 4th or 5th on the list for me if my kid died.
Yeah, I could see that. I think for me, like, I definitely know exactly what you're talking about. I kind of chalked it up to bad writing though, because it was like, even when the kid got hit like by the bike, I was like both, you know, we were like, okay, so, like, what's going on? Like, he hurt? Like, they didn't move him at all, and like he wasn't moving, and it's like, you don't, like, they don't even say, you know, really up until that point what was going, like, what they thought was going on. It was, so it's just it was almost like if someone could have just said like he's dead, then it would have saved a lot of confusion until they showed. Like, for me, it was like once they showed up at Haggis's house was when I realized, like, I think it was then where I was like, okay, this dude's dead. Like,
well, right before that,
coming back.
Right before that, in the truck when he was like under that blanket.
Yeah, with it covered his head. Yeah,
that was the part for me, but it was not until that point. So yeah. So anyway,
I definitely see that for sure. But I know what you mean, because it's like that's not how I would act.
Yeah, and then I felt I had a hard time feeling like sympathetic towards his character after that, because he just acted like a robot. So anyway, what's something you liked about the movie though?
So kind of not taking the easy road out, but like I definitely enjoy the way that Pumpkinhead, the demon, looked. And we kind of already talked about this, but like, yeah, I think I for sure enjoyed the special effects. I was confused on, I was still kind of confused on the story throughout the movie for me, where it was like, okay, they're not to get too negative, but they're like summoning this demon. Okay, cool, I understand that. But then you don't really, there's no rhyme or reason to the demon. Like, you kill one but wouldn't kill the other. Anyway, I like the idea, the the special effects and like the way that he was like, I guess in a creepy sounding way, the way that he was killing them, like it was all kind of a little bit different. For instance, he gets shot in the head by the guy, and he grabs the gun from him. Instead of shooting him, he stabs him with it.
Yeah,
and it looked pretty legit, going into him. But I think I just enjoyed those special effects scenes, drawing the cross on the girl's face. That looked kind of real, and just all that.
Yeah. So my love for the movie actually fits nicely with what you just said, because my favorite part of it was when the asshole in the leather jacket got what was coming to him.
Absolutely, yeah.
They did a great job of creating a very, very hateable character, and probably a little more so even than they intended, because he was just so over the top.
Yeah.
But the fact that you got the satisfaction of seeing the monster destroy him in an especially brutal way after what he'd done to everybody else in the movie was very, very satisfying. So
yeah. I mean, it was while we're kind of on this love and hate thing, the movie itself was just confusing to me. It didn't like really come together. Like, I mean, okay, I get the guy's son died and he summoned a demon, but like you don't realize that that's gonna take over that person. Especially, I mean, at least I didn't catch that it was gonna take over the person who summoned it, and then also like, how can this demon just show up but not run? I don't know. There was just like a bunch of confusing like aspects where I was just like, it just seemed like this movie kind of fell short story wise, but did good, special effects.
Yeah, like the creature just had no sense of urgency about the killing.
Right.
It was just like it was hanging out, and every once in a while it would see somebody, but then it was also kind of like stalking them. It was weird.
Yeah,
it was.
It would like kill one of them at the beginning. It killed the brother, but then left the girl, which he could have easily killed.
Yes,
and she runs back, and it's like, well, you could just kill both of them if you're going to.
Right.
Not that we want you to, but.
Yeah, but it definitely wasn't in a hurry at all, and it felt like it also tried to kill them in ways that was extra scary to the other people. So I wondered if what they were going for was like the creature already knows it's going to win, and it knows that they're not going to get away, and so it's just doing it
fun.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah,
like doing it in a way that feels like the most satisfying revenge. And then I kind of thought that either like when the creature killed the last person that Ed was going to die or something, because they were really playing up that whole link between like when the creature's around, he's having all these weird feelings and stuff. Like there was some kind of link between the two. I didn't necessarily think he was going to turn into or be the next creature or whatever,
right?
But yeah, so they did that. When I mentioned that I like the ending, that's what I was talking about, that he ended up becoming the new Pumpkinhead, because you see the old lady Haggis burying him in that pumpkin patch at the end.
And he has the necklace on, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but my second favorite scene of the movie was when Ed's talking to the hill people right after the sun dies, and the old man's like, "What killed him?" And Ed's just like, "City folk."
Yeah. I thought that same thing. I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
And there's no explanation at all. The guy was just like, "Yep, that makes sense."
Coming from a small town, I understand completely.
Yeah, he must have seen that intersection by my apartment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but then another scene I really liked was when the creature is holding that girl's head from behind and pushing it against the glass, and then through the window. And it was so brutal, but also so casual, and like it just wanted the people inside to see it. Yeah. Like that was the point of that, was just to create terror. And to me, when you have an adversary that's in a position where it can do that and feels like no sense of I need to be on defense at all, I'm just toying with my prey, that makes it extra scary. So that was one scene that I thought worked really well.
Yeah, I could see that. I think for me, it was I guess my absolute favorite kind of goes into the ending. So do you want to kind of cut to the ending? Yeah, I can.
Yeah, let's
trying to talk about. So really, it's kind of. I think. Well, first off, I really enjoyed the scene where the leather jacket bad guy got what was coming for him.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Because he randomly kidnapped or like locked his friends in the closet, which was just weird.
And he was drinking and driving, and he killed a child, and then ran away and didn't stand around to take responsibility. So,
but then exactly. But the whole like the whole thing with like his brother not being it, So I have a brother, love him to death. I've been blessed with being the exact same size as him since day one.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, and he's older than me. For me, it's thinking, like, if he did something like that, like, first off, I'd probably help him out because, like, I'm not an idiot brother. You know what I mean? It's like, I understand, man. You were drinking. Anyway, not just kidding. But it's also like, how could that brother just kind of cower down? It's like, go open the door for your friend, and then, like, you guys can, like, stop him, and then you can get out of there, and you don't have to worry about Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
I mean, not that he would show up. Anyway, so I enjoyed that. But I think for me, once it got... Because I was kind of confused on what was going on. Like, kind of what you were talking. Like, I felt like Mr. Harley was going to die after the last person was taken. Or, he was going to be killed with him or something. And especially since he, turned on it. But then he's getting a flamethrower, which was cleverly put in the story at the beginning of the movie. Totally didn't think that was going to happen.
Sarah loved the opening scene of a shirtless man with a flamethrower, by the way. So
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Who didn't?
He's not my type.
More of a bear guy. So I just learned what those are. So anyway, he's getting the flamethrower. And he trips. He takes like a gnarly spill, and like trips into the pitchfork. Yeah. And like that's a terrible injury. Like, like it initially looked like he kind of just like I don't know. For me, I thought he just kind of like it kind of barely went in, but like that was like deep in. But anyway, from there, I'll kind of let you take over if you like to explain the rest of the ending. But he realizes that if something happens to him, it'll affect the demon.
Yeah, so they're like linked.
Yeah,
and then it all
that's
sort
when he realizes it was at that moment.
Yeah, and so he's clearly feeling bad that he has unleashed this thing on the quote teenagers, and then is trying to help them get away, and he discovers that anything that happens to him, the creature feels as well. It's not just a one-way with it happening to the creature and him feeling it. So in sort of a last desperate move, he shoots himself in the head with the intention of killing the creature, but somehow manages to not kill himself. And from 0 inches away. And then one of the surviving girls comes over and finishes him off. And then that kills Pumpkinhead. And then, it kind of flashes forward and you see the old lady putting him into Pumpkinhead's grave there in the patch. And so the implication is that he will become Pumpkinhead next time someone summons it. So I think the overall theme of the movie was that the desire for revenge can consume you and keeps you from moving on with your life. And it's like a trap. If you give in, then really you're only hurting yourself and kind of holding yourself hostage to those painful things that you're dwelling on, which was pretty straightforward as far as like metaphor. It didn't take a whole lot of unraveling to figure out that's what they were trying to say. But I do always feel like a horror movie is at its best when it's telling us something about ourselves and has some sort of deeper meaning. I think that the horror works well at like shocking us into taking a different view of things. So I applaud the attempt. The execution maybe wasn't the most graceful, but yeah, I think it was I think for me with this movie, there was just a whole bunch of confusion going on, and then finally it all kind of clicked at the very end. But that's that for me, it took a long time. Now, I don't think it was a bad movie because I do like these types of horrors, and I'll definitely watch this. I'll watch this again for sure. But like thinking on it, like, man,
like you do special effects, and you had a guy shoot himself like directly in the head, and you didn't do anything cool with like
yeah, that's true.
Like that was like that's a big opportunity right there. But anyway, I think it had some high points, it had some low points, but overall, I think it was, in my opinion, a typical 80s horror movie that fit right in with a lot of the other stuff that was going on at the same time.
Yeah.
It also had like a bad name.
It was a bad name. It is a Pumpkinhead, Pillowface, and I mean, right up there.
We didn't even make up Pumpkinhead to make fun of the character.
Exactly.
It's just like, that's your name?
That just writes itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about, because I hadn't seen this movie before. I've definitely not seen any of the sequels. I'm curious what the sequels would be. I mean, is it just rinse and repeat, or what do they do to keep it fresh and interesting?
Yeah, we'll have to check that out when we're doing our sequels.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
This is definitely one for the books.
Indeed. I think that's about it. Do you have anything else?
No, I do not. Well, okay, I do.
All right.
So, if you're going to name a movie Pumpkinhead, at least make it during Halloween time.
Yeah, that does feel like a missed opportunity.
Like, this was, like, obviously, like, summertime. Like, everyone was sweating. Like, the guy was, like, had no shirt on. I guess there was a couple jackets. But it's, like, make it more Halloween time, I guess, No, I assume that, pumpkins grow really well before then, which is why the pumpkins are relevant in October. But anyway, just saying.
I say get better actors.
That's very true.
You can call the thing whatever you want.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, all right, then. I think we're done.
All right.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.